What's up, football fans? Welcome to another episode of The Extra Point. Got my boy Cody with us tonight. Cody, good to see you, man. Excited to have you on the show. We've got a live Superflex draft. We'll get into that in just a second. But before we do anything else, tell the folks where they can find you, man.
I'm exclusively at Dynasty Pros, doing my show over there with Brian that you saw last week. And, well, Phil just came on board to write a little bit. So I'm dabbling writing every now and then. So that's pretty much where I'm at for the fantasy space anyways. So
Awesome, man. Yeah. And for those that don't know, dynastyprosfootball.com. You can catch Cody and Brian's show every week. You can also catch all three of us, our writers over there. So you can catch some of our written content. Obviously, if you're watching the show, you know where to find me here at the Extra Point every Thursday night. You can also listen on Spotify and Patreon, help support the show over there. We got more content than you probably want, but it's redraft season. It's best ball season. We're always playing Dynasty. But tonight, we have for you a Superflex draft, mock draft for redraft purposes. So we're going to be going Superflex to quarterback, 2 running backs, 3 wide receivers, a tight end, 2 flex, full PPR. So I'm going to go ahead and bring up the board here so everybody can have a chance to see it. And then we are going to dive in and without further ado, get started because I know the guys in the room, I see almost all green lights. So we are probably ready to rock and roll here. Give me a second. There we go. Be sure to jump in, interact in the comments. As the draft kind of goes, Cody and I will just be talking about some of our favorite picks, players we like, obviously some of the builds that we're really, excited about as we get into this. And look, it's a mock draft. The whole purpose is you just don't know where you're going to go. So I'm actually going to go ahead and randomize. I should be able to do this, but randomize this 3 times. So we will have 1. We will have 2. We will have 3 random positions here. Somehow I'm in the draft. I don't know how that just occurred. Hopefully I didn't kick somebody out. That's strange. All right, maybe I claimed a spot, but we're all good. So I guess I'm in the draft now, drafting 6, so that's fun. Turn the volume off. Jay Speezy, our buddy Jay Speezy, on the clock. Here we go. Cody, as we get started, anything as you are going through a Superflex draft, first couple rounds, obviously, we expect ADP to be pretty close, but what are you trying to leave the draft with in these first couple rounds? And maybe more importantly, who are you targeting, in these first 3 picks?
the first 3 picks, I'm always just trying, if I'm a top 3 pick, I'm always trying to get one of the prime quarterbacks because then I can, in a Superflex league, I can wait on the second one a little bit longer than I would if I was in the 6 to 12 range. That's just, in my opinion, that's how I play it anyways.
Okay. Yeah, I mean, I think for me, I'm always looking to do, kind of a hero QB build if I can. I'm not sure how I got into this draft. I wanted to try to get Levi Oliveri, my spot back, but I don't know how to do that. So I see Levi. Hey, I'm out of the draft. Sorry, man. Let me see if I can pause it and maybe get him in here.
Probably if you pause it and then leave and then he can.
Yeah, give me a second. I'll just jump in. So if you're listening on Spotify, not the greatest content, but if you were watching live, we're trying to make sure the people that actually register for this draft can get in. So give us a second here. Let me see. Can I just?
This is how you know it's live, though. Sometimes
this is how you know it's live. This is how you know it's live. So, all right. Well,
no editing
let me
here.
do this. Levi, I don't know how to get out of this draft right now, man, and I will give him a spot next week, 100%. I don't want to hold the draft up. I feel bad. Got a quick question coming in here from Chris Bird. In a 12-man Superflex with 1 keeper at the 5th pick, would you keep Derrick Henry in the 2nd, Debo in the 4th, or Tua in the 5th? Cody, how do you evaluate that one?
I'm keeping Debo in the 4th. Just because
keeping Debo in the 4th.
Yeah, that's what I'm keeping. That's what I would keep out of those 3 options. Just because 2 in the 5th, I still think you can get them at better value, even this year. And Derrick Henry isn't going to be going in the 2nd round either. And if he is, I mean, I'd rather take someone else in the 2nd round.
Yeah, I'm with you. I just think the ceiling upside there is going to be higher of all those players for Debo. I mean, look, Derrick Henry's. We don't know what his usage is going to be in Baltimore. I almost said Tennessee. In Baltimore,
yeah, exactly.
We expect that the touchdown is his true value is the touchdown upside, but again, we're just not entirely sure, what his ceiling outcome is going to be from a yardage perspective. And look, he's playing with Lamar Jackson, obviously a rushing quarterback, if not one of the top rushing quarterbacks in the league. So to me, Debo's the clear choice. But look, Tua just got the bag. I know we were only here in the first round. How are you feeling about Tua this season? Obviously, Waddle should be back fully healthy. He is back fully healthy. We know what they're capable of. That running back room. Do you see a QB1 season in Tua's future in redraft?
I actually do, but that's just because of the weapons he has. I know, like, he's been injured and stuff like that, but this is what, year 3 with both of them in with him. So with Waddle
Yep.
and Hill, I mean, just they have rapport, and you don't have a lot of that in the league nowadays. And with if you keep getting your top 2 wide receivers back, I mean, I'm gonna bet on that quarterback, and I think he could finish top 10 for sure. And then I'd be very happy with that.
I asked this question. We did a mock draft the other night on a different channel, and I asked this question. I'll ask you the same one. In a single quarterback league, are you comfortable with Tua as your QB1 if you get him late?
No, I'm not.
No.
But
Okay.
it
Okay.
just like that's where he's I'm comfortable with him in my super flex spot. I'm not
Sure.
comfortable with him as my QB1 for sure.
So this is obviously a super flex mock draft that we're doing here tonight. I'm curious what are or who I should say, who are some of the guys that you are comfortable with as a quarterback in a single quarterback league if you're missing out on the top guys.
Single quarterback, I usually play half PPR
Okay.
in regards to that. So I mean, I'm always looking for the rushing upside quarterbacks.
Yeah.
So the Anthony Richardsons, I'm gonna probably throw a few out there with him, and Lamar Jackson's always a good play. But I mean, for the pure throwers, CJ Stroud seems to be pretty good so far, but Josh Allen and Patrick Mahomes you can never go wrong with.
Right.
So, I mean, the one that scares me just a little bit is Jalen Hurts because I don't know if he's going to revert back to what he was last season or the season prior. So he's the only one that I'm really I'm pumping the brakes on. I still believe in him, but it's just he's not the one I'm taking in redraft.
Are you worried at all about Jason Kelce being gone and maybe a lack of the tush push and you obviously Saquon there, who is a legitimate touchdown threat? Okay.
Yes, exactly. I think that's what it is. I think they're going to go heavy run, not on him because that's how he got injured last year. So
yeah. And so Joe Burrow coming off the board here, Dirty Mike taking him here at the 205 to stack with Jamar Chase. Yeah, really nice stack. How are you feeling about Joe Burrow? I know the sentiment around him, the vibes are high going into preseason. Whether the real Joe Burrow will stand up or not, we'll find out. But how do you feel about Joey B?
I need to see it with the wrist, so I'm letting other people take him right now. Just with a throwing wrist injury like that, and it's never been it's kind of never happened before. That's why I'm kind of leery on it, but we'll see how it plays out. And if I get burned by it, I get burned by it. But he's just a little bit too high of a risk for me this year. But if I have him in dynasties, I'm still not like trading him or anything.
Yeah.
But in redraft, he's just. I mean, if he falls to like the 2.9, 2.10, I'm probably taking him. But it's like middle of the second round for me there.
Yeah.
I'm not taking him in the first round for sure.
No,
I'm taking my whole team on him.
I don't think any. I think in Superflex, it's, again, we're looking for, like you said earlier, we're looking for rushing upside. Ultimately, we're looking for guys with ceiling performances. The challenge that I always have with the CJ Strouds and Joe Burrows of the world is they have to throw for 35 plus touchdowns. They have to throw for 4,000, 4,500 yards to make up that difference in gap from what a Josh Allen, what a Lamar Jackson, and Jalen Hurts historically has been able to do. So there's nothing wrong with the pocket passers, but you look at, it's the same conversation we've had about, he hasn't come off the board yet, but Sam Laporta. Right, like Sam Laporta going in the third round in best ball right now, going in the third at the 3-4 turn in redraft, he has to repeat what he did last season to return on that cost. And do you see another double-digit touchdown season in Sam Laporta's future? I think we're all expecting regression, but where do you land on with Sam Laporta here?
Well, if you can't see in the background, I'm a Vikings fan, so I hope he doesn't. But just more of a he could, but yeah. I mean. If I'm a defense and I'm playing against Detroit, I'm still letting Sam Laporta beat me. So I could actually see it.
Yeah.
because I don't think they can win games with just Laporta being the number one guy. So
Yeah.
that's where I'm sitting at. So he still might, but you know what I mean. Like that's where I'm thinking about it. So he might still be a good play, but and this isn't tight end premium. I'm not taking him for a few rounds.
Yeah.
Sure.
To me it's difficult to pay that cost because you're giving up in a super flex league. If you're taking him that early, you're giving up a wide receiver. So he's basically a wide receiver 1 or 2 in
Yeah,
that case.
exactly. No way.
In a single quarterback, you're giving up a running back or a wide receiver in that range as well. So to me, give me some of the guys, the Dalton Kincaid in the 5th or 6th. Give me Kyle Pitts in the 6th. Like those are some guys that I would. Mark Andrews, I think, could easily finish ahead of Laporta this season.
Yep.
I think that's obviously always in his range of outcomes. And look, even Kelsey at his age, this isn't Dynasty. This is a redraft format for one season. Yes, his targets have been down. Sure, he's talking about his body, too much traveling with Swift and all this stuff. But, like, he's still Travis Kelsey. You know what I mean? Like, he's still capable of giving you a 3-touchdown game because the weeks that it's Travis Kelsey's week, he wins you the week, right? Like, that's always
For sure.
that's always when we see him going off the board here. So, yeah, I think what I'm looking for obviously is going to be guys that I think can obviously outperform their ADP, but ultimately can they at least at a minimum return on what I'm investing in them. So as we get through the kind of the middle of the 3rd round here, and I'm on the clock, so I want to turn this to you. Anything that stands out to you? Any sort of builds that you particularly like right away? Anything that is there anything that surprises you?
I mean, Josh Mad Dog with no quarterback is a little surprising, but I like the build that he's already making. I'm not going to lie. So,
Yep.
I mean, going quarterback, tight end is another choice. But, I mean, right now we're still in like premium position places. So I don't hate anything that's going on right now.
Yeah, it's early, right? Like there's nothing like nobody's going to go and graft, Jahan Dotson in the 3rd round. So yeah, I don't think there's anything that anyone's really quote unquote reaching for. Thoughts on Bijan? Obviously, we are excited about what we believe this is. Yes, it's his 2nd season in the league, but again, it's kind of his first real season because last year was such chaos with Arthur Smith.
Yep.
Are you buying the Tyler Algier is going to have a more prominent role than Bijan managers want, or do you think that's camp hype and coach speak?
I think that's camp height and coach speed.
Yeah.
Because I think how the board played out, I think it's CMC is still 1, Breece Hall and Bijan are 2 and 3.
Yeah.
I would argue Bijan's 2, in my opinion,
Mm-hmm.
and Breece Hall 3, and Jahmyr Gibbs is probably my 4 as well. But still, I'm a little bit lower on Gibbs as well because I still don't know that's the backfield that I don't know about.
Yeah.
Because Montgomery still is there. And and they're still going to be playing the 2 running back sets. So, I mean, in that case, I'd probably be going Jonathan Taylor or Saquon before that as well.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I mean, I think the hard part for me with Gibbs is you've seen it, so you know what he's capable of, even with Monty there. So that's why I say the hard part for me is I have a hard time passing on him.
Yep.
Even with Monty there, it doesn't bother me, right? I'm going to switch gears for just 1 second to make my point here. We have seen wide receivers both finish as wide receiver 1s being supported by the same quarterback, a la Jalen Waddle and Tyreek Hill, Jay Brown and Devonta Smith. So I don't see a reason why Jahmyr Gibbs and David Montgomery can't both coexist. And even if Gibbs finishes as a running back 1 and Monty is on that 1-2 bubble, I think they can both get it done. Ultimately, Jahmyr Gibbs' pass catching upside, if there is one thing to be read about and believed, he's lining up at wide receiver. He's lining up in the slot. They're using him as more of a gadget, player right now, at least in preseason. So, whereas Monty's a true running back. So
for sure.
I don't have any problem. I don't have any problem with anyone that takes Gibbs over JT or takes him over Saquon. To me,
well, and I mean, in a full PPR league, yeah, I would, for that reason alone, even in training camp, if he's starting to line up in the slot or anything like that, yeah, I'm going to be taking him. So.
Yeah. Yeah, exactly. I mean, and look, I do think, like, we talk a lot about, when you have 2 tight ends, are they going to run more 12 personnel, right? Everyone's talking about, Dalton Kincaid's going to have his workload eaten into by Dawson Knox. Dawson Knox was on the team last year. Why didn't they feed him?
Exactly.
Right? So they can play more 12 personnel. So I do think there's a world where Gibbs and Monty can line up on the same play. They can line up potentially both in the backfield, and then Gibbs can get split out wide. So I don't really see an issue, with the competition for touches being as big of a deal as maybe everybody else thinks it's going to be. But you're right. We'll see how it all plays out.
But even with just the combat, just a little bit. I mean,
Yeah.
even with that, he still is in a competition for snaps where Saquon and Jonathan Taylor aren't.
True.
So you know they're going to get the bulk of it. So it's kind of
True.
like, do you want just the security of a bell cow, or do you want kind of that as well? So
the argument, though, for those that are, like us, pretty diehards, is
yeah,
the bell cow role is secure, but you're also competing with your own quarterback for end zone and goal line work, because that's what Jalen Hurts and Anthony Richardson are going to quote unquote make their money off of, right? Is they're obviously the big time rushing quarterbacks. So, I want to ask you this, because I had this come up in a chat conversation with a buddy the other day. He's worried in redraft about taking JT and Anthony Richardson together. Obviously, a lot of people in Dynasty have that combination, so that's something you're obviously not going to trade one of those guys away. Is that something that you would avoid, or are you just simply taking the two probably best players at their position if they're available on the board when you're on the clock?
I try to avoid a quarterback running back stack almost at all costs.
Yep.
That's just how I've always played redraft, is because I don't want to have overexposure to one team. So, I mean, now just how it is now, stacking a quarterback with a wide receiver is a little bit different, because it's not just, getting everyone involved. They go with a hot hand a little bit more,
right,
than usual nowadays. So it's just more, I try to avoid it at all costs, actually. So
yeah, I'm with you. In redraft, I wouldn't play that way. In best ball,
Dynasty,
yes, and even in best ball, I'm okay with it, because it's just you're going for total volume, total points. There's just certain weeks when Richardson maybe isn't as good of an example. We haven't seen it, but let's say that Jalen Hurts is going to have a solid passing game, and Saquon gets the touchdowns. Maybe Jalen Hurts still has one or two passing touchdowns. It can be done. So I don't think it's maybe for those that are out there. It's certainly something we wouldn't recommend doing in a redraft league, but in a best ball or in a dynasty format, absolutely go for it. So as we get into the fifth here, some names that are coming off the board. I'm surprised Jalen Waddle and Devonta Smith have lasted this long. I know it's super flex, so the quarterbacks get pushed up a bit, but
so my screen has locked up, so I'm still on 4.2. If you could send me the link so I could get it on my phone so I could see it.
Yeah, give me 1 second. Let's do that for you. Give me 1 second.
Sorry about that.
No, you're good, man. How do I send you the link?
Should be able to copy the link of the draft.
Yeah, it's already started, so it doesn't let me. Oh, create it. Just creates a copy of the board.
Yeah. Oh, okay. That's fine.
Interesting. Well, I don't want to create a copy of the board.
Yeah.
Maybe just refresh your browser a couple times. We'll see what happens here.
Perfect.
Does that work? Yep. Cody dropped off. No worries. So as we get into the fifth round here, Jalen Waddle, Devonta Smith, I'm obviously in the draft tonight. I wasn't planning to be. But as I look at that, to me, those are tremendous values here in the fifth round. Really love the fact that you're able to grab Devonta Smith for Skull and NH as his wide receiver 2, for Josh Mad Dog as his wide receiver 3. Obviously a 3 wide receiver build tonight, so really solid value there. Seeing Sam Laporta and Travis Kelce come off the board in the third round, and then we have a whole round and a half really until we see our first tight ends, with Dalton Kincaid, Trey McBride, and now Mark Andrews coming off the board. The draft settings for this one, this is not tight end premium, so this is about where I think it is the right value, especially as you see kind of the toy maker here, starting with Tyreek Hill and A.J. Brown. Adding Kincaid, I really like that. Dirty Mike opting as the super flex to go with 2 quarterbacks, but grabbing Trey McBride as his de facto wide receiver 2. Still a lot of good wide receivers on the board, so we'll see what kind of circles back around. And Zach's back as well, kind of doing a very similar strategy here. So really good builds so far. Also really wanting to see how Skolin, NH, Riven, and Kryptonauts teams turned out, because they both started quarterback in Superflex. Absolutely nothing wrong with that build, but just always curious when you go that kind of hero QB route, what do your teams end up looking like? So we're going to see how this plays out for the next couple of minutes. As I jump in here, let's jump into the chat here. We've got So Turtle saying, "Yo, I'm at the 11th pick. I never get Jefferson in any mock draft, so that's crazy." To me, I think it's awesome the fact that JJ dropped that far. I think it's great value. The other thing is it's super flex, so you're going to see the quarterbacks get pushed up the board and go off the board pretty early. But I do think JJ coming off the board here is the wide receiver 4. Probably about the right price. I would say JJ and Amon-Ra St. Brown, kind of the wide receiver 4, wide receiver 5. So, Cody, as you come back in, if you can hear me, anything that, from Amon-Ra St. Brown, JJ, how do you differentiate the two? What are you looking for? And which one would you take if you're on the clock?
I'm always taking JJ. Obviously,
Always taking JJ.
I'm biased, but I mean, I just
Vikings.
also, yeah. But it's also, I mean, I think the Vikings proved last year that the offensive system doesn't really matter with the quarterback. So
Yep.
I would still be valuing Justin Jefferson as the top wide receiver off the board. So
Yeah.
that, I mean, that's why there's no comparison in my opinion.
Yeah.
Because I still don't believe in Jared Goff. He's been a lot better in Detroit, but I've seen the bad and now I've seen the good. But I've always seen consistency with JJ.
Yeah.
So, but it's very dependent for Goff to be good, for Amon-Ra St. Brown to be good, in my opinion, because we haven't seen it with anyone else.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah. We had this kind of conversation a day or two ago, and I made this comment then. I'll make it again. I'm always going to bet on the talent of Justin Jefferson, regardless of if it's Sam Darnold to just open the year and then JJ McCarthy later on. I am in on Goff. I do think that offense is going to return on the value that you're getting, for wherever you draft them. I also think Goff isn't sneaky by any means, but I do think he's a fantastic late round quarterback if you're just going to go super skill position heavy and just try to load up. I don't have a problem in a single quarterback league. If you take Goff as your QB1, that's fine to me. Obviously in Superflex, he has not. Oh, excuse me. He came off of the 307. I was going to say he has to have come off the board. So, yeah, to me, look, Goff in a dome is where he's been the best, and obviously he plays at home, but also Minnesota, obviously in a dome, so at least an extra away game, there,
yep.
and then obviously some of the other games. I haven't looked at their schedule, but I'm guessing they'll at least play one more game on the road there in a dome as well. So more games than not in a dome there for Jared Goff and company. But as a Vikings fan, how do you see the quarterback race shaping up? Do you think it's Sam Darnold to open the year? Do you think it's McCarthy? And are you drafting either in a Superflex redraft?
So I think it's going to be Darnold to start the year because
Okay.
I truly believe Kevin O'Connell isn't going to play JJ until he's fully bought into him.
Yep.
So that's where I think it's going to go, and I'm okay with whatever the record is because we need to get JJ right. We need to get JJ McCarthy right. So we'll know by bye week if what we are as a team because we have a hard 6 games to start it out. So it's just more of in that regard, yes. But and in redraft, I'm taking you said in redraft leagues?
In redraft, yeah, in redraft.
In redraft, I am taking Sam Darnold as my third.
Okay. Yeah.
Because hopefully one of my first 2 quarterbacks are in the first 6 weeks because I think maybe that 6-week mark is where they make the change, but we'll see. But if I have a Justin Herbert as my QB1, let's just say, and they have a week 5 bye,
right?
Then I can just put Sam Darnold in there and just not think about it.
Yeah.
So, and he's going in like 18, 19 rounds or in that range, and at that point they're all dart throws anyway. So I'm going to try to get a starting running back or a starting quarterback as late as possible.
Yeah, it's very, very late. Give me just 1 second here as I'm on the clock. I want to take a quick peek at who's on the board here. Well, that's a no-brainer pick for me. Yeah, that's going to be a no-brainer pick for me right there. Yeah, I kind of look at I look at the Vikings as like a better version of last year's Titans, where we were just kind of waiting for when is Will Levis going to take over. Now, obviously, the Titans with Ryan Tannehill, they were thinking, okay, if we're competitive, if we're going to be a team that looking like we have any shot at the playoffs, we'll stick with it. Clearly, they didn't, so they made the change. I think it's very obvious that it's JJ McCarthy's team. The question, like you said, is when do they make the switch? And if Sam Darnold, my question really is, and this is sort of rhetorical, but if Sam Darnold is playing well, do you make the change?
I mean, it makes it easier to say no, right?
Right.
But I'm still certain it's JJ's team after this year.
Yeah.
I don't think Sam Darnold comes back at all. If he has a Case Keenum type of year, I'm very excited for it because we
Sure.
actually have a backup plan that
Yeah. Yeah.
works. So it's just more of I've seen enough of Sam Darnold to know that I'm all right with him being a bridge,
Yep.
and I'm okay with taking my licks this year if that means we have the quarterback of the future.
Yep. I think that's right. And look, I mean, not to make you upset, but I do have the Vikings finishing last in the division this season, right? I just
Yeah, for sure.
if the quarterback play and to be fair, the running back play scares me, right? Like I just don't. Aaron Jones is old. He gets hurt. His injury history is well documented. I do think Ty Chandler is actually a sneaky good pickup late in drafts this season as a great handcuff or as just a good player to have. He's been a solid performer when he's. I mean, look, he didn't. He outperformed Alexander Madison.
Yeah.
He
Oh, yeah.
straight up won the job from him. So again, I'm not sitting here beating the drum that Ty Chandler is an RB1 or is going to return that kind of value.
No.
But look, the running back position and the way that it is, it gets injured. You're going to go deep into your bench and into the waiver wire, and there's a clear path for him to play and to have significant valuable touches in that offense, regardless of Aaron Jones or not. I think he's very clearly the backup. So yeah, it's
And to put a bow on that,
Yeah.
I mean, KOC is a McVay type of play caller as well.
right.
So they really like play action. But if you
Yep.
know the running back's never going to get the ball, play action doesn't work.
Sure. Yep.
So you need production back there, and they don't have. I agree with you. I'm very scared of the backfield too. But I mean,
Yep.
Dalvin Cook was getting old. We just got older with Aaron Jones, and you couldn't put all your eggs in the Ty Chandler basket.
Sure, of course.
So
Give me just 1 second. I guess there's a couple guys having some issues with the screen.
yeah, I
not
can't
updating.
see the board at all. So
All right. Well, let me just do this then. Let me go ahead and just pause the draft really quickly here. Actually, as soon as Zach's back, Big Chief, if you're here, I'm going to go ahead and pause it right after Zach's pick here. And we're just going to pause it really quickly. I'm going to go ahead and refresh it. Refresh the page. I'm going to stop my share. Let's refresh this real quick, and hopefully this helps everybody. And we'll try this again. Apologies, guys, that are waiting to draft. Let's try one more time.
hey,
We got it.
I see it.
We see it. What pick are you on? Did we see Chris Godwin just get selected there?
Sure did. Yep.
All right. I think we're all right. So good. We look like we're back here. And Big Chief got 24 seconds back on the clock. Let's go ahead and mute my volume.
Oh yeah,
Cool.
I see it.
Yeah, a couple guys. There we go. So let's go to the chat here real quick. We've got Steven Michelson. I can't get on board with Jones being toast. I think he's going to be a safety blanket for Darnold or JJ in that backfield if he stays healthy, of course. I don't disagree with it. I don't think he's toast. I'm not targeting Aaron Jones. He's just not a player that I feel confident in. I don't want it. I think at the end of I don't know how many he's going to miss time. You know what I mean? Like it's just a question of when. I don't know how many weeks in it's going to be, but he's capable of winning you a week. We've seen it before with the Packers. When he was with the Packers, he'd give you some of those crazy 120-yard with 3 touchdown games, and that's about as ceiling as it's going to get. But then he would disappear. So to me, it's just I'm okay being wrong. I'm always okay being wrong on certain players and admitting that. And ultimately, I'm just rather somebody else take him. And if he hits, good for you. If he doesn't, then kind of justifies why I avoided him.
Well, we can look at each other right here. He's still better than Josh Jacobs this year. Mm-hmm. And that's just us biased Vikings fans saying that, and I'm all right with saying that as well.
Yeah. Well, and look, Josh Jacobs, again, it's camp. Let's not overhype anything. But Josh Jacobs already dealing with it. I think it's a hamstring or a quad. I think it was a hamstring that I saw today. Something kind of flaring up on him. I'm on the clock here, so I want to take a quick peek and see where I'm at. I can wait on that. All right, I'm doing it. I'm buying it.
There you go.
I'm buying it. So I just took Rashee Rice for those that may be on Spotify or on Patreon or listening to the show tomorrow, not catching the show live. Rashee Rice, nothing has come down about the suspension as of today. I read somewhere November looks like when his next court date is been set
Yeah, it's
for,
gonna
which
be next
obviously
year for
is
sure.
yeah. So I'm starting to lean this is kind of an Alvin Kamara 2.0 where it is a 2025 suspension. So if that's indeed the case, one, is Rice a value? And two, how high do you think he rises over the next month, especially as we get really into, got to make a choice and click that button in redraft season here?
If he didn't have what was going on, would you have taken Rashee Rice over Debo Samuel in that spot that you were in?
On the 5th round,
Yeah.
I would still take Debo over Rice,
Okay.
just
So
because of
I
what he
think,
means to San Francisco's offense.
and I agree with that as well. But then later in the round, like obviously, I'm taking Smith and Waddle. Pickens
Yes.
is where I'm probably thinking about taking Rice over
Okay.
Pickens.
Yeah.
That's just where I'm thinking. I'm looking at the board and where things are going.
Yep.
I would take him over Hollywood Brown as well.
100%.
Because it's not just because I like Hollywood Brown and I think he's going to do well with Kansas City, but having Hollywood Brown on that team opens up Rashee Rice and his game a lot more.
Indeed. Yeah.
It's kind of like Keenan Allen with DJ Moore.
Yep.
Having Keenan Allen on the team is only going to help DJ Moore.
Good point. Yeah. Good point. I'm with you on the Rice over Pickens take simply because of the offense, right? It's Arthur Smith. We don't know who the quarterback is. It could be Russell Wilson. Now he's dealing with an injury already. Justin Fields is Justin Fields. It's going to be a mess there all season. Look, to me, if there is no suspension, Rice is the de facto wide receiver 1/passing option number 2 behind Kelsey in that offense.
For sure.
We haven't seen anything out of Worthy yet. He's never caught a pass in the NFL. And let's call a spade a spade. The kid's 165 pounds. If you've not been on Twitter this week, and if you have, you've seen what I'm calling the pinball video of him trying to block, and it's just it looks like a little kid out there. But he's going to catch long ones. That's his role. That's his job. And I think ultimately at the end of the day, that's what he's there to do, is open up space underneath for Rashee Rice, for Hollywood, for Kelsey, where they operate the best, and open up some more running lanes for Pacheco. So I look, we don't know what the suspension's coming, but from what I saw from Rashee Rice with the Patrick Mahomes offense, I think he probably goes in the 5th, in the early to mid 5th round if there's no suspension as we over the next month.
Yeah, I agree with that.
Yep. As you start to take a quick look over the board, and take your time here if you need to, because I'm about to be on the clock again, so more than happy to turn it over to you for a second or two. We're now in the 9th round, almost to the middle of the 9th round here. Are there any builds, Cody, that stand out to you that you really like? And if so, what do you like about them?
Just looking at the board here, I actually really like Josh Mad Dog's build.
Okay.
I mean, getting Trevor Lawrence, I think he's going to have a bounce back year. But then still in the 5th, getting Jalen Waddle with Chris Olave and Garrett Wilson.
Yep.
That's a young stack of wide receivers that I like. Having Kirk Cousins as a bona fide great super flex quarterback, and then you can make the risk of taking Josh Jacobs in that place because you already have Christian McCaffrey. That counts as 2 running backs anyways.
Right.
So,
Right.
And at that point, with it not being tight end premium, tight end at that point doesn't matter. So
yep.
Yeah, I'm liking where it's going.
Yeah, it's a good build. I think if you've got an opportunity to go and get some of those high, skill positions, obviously CMC can finish as the overall RB1. Look, Wilson and Olave, I don't think can finish inside the top 5. I do think they can back end wide receiver seasons.
Yep.
Because they're really the only option on their team, right? Like everyone else on their teams are rookies that we think have some upside, or they're kind of, old Mike Williams, old veterans who Mike Williams for the 7 to 8 games Mike Williams plays this season, he'll be great. Right. And for the 9 games that he misses, there's, that's how Mike Williams' season always goes. So I think volume alone for Wilson and Olave, but to me, again, I just, as I look through the board, Waddle and Devonta Smith in the 5th are screaming values. It's phenomenal. And then I'm curious again, it's not meant to be the Vikings variety hour, but as we just talked about Rashee Rice, Jordan Addison is dropping like crazy because of this, this alleged DUI. Look, he's probably drunk. He fell asleep at the wheel. Like, right. There's clearly something going on there.
Yep.
I haven't heard anything about a suspension. His comments the other day said, whatever happens, I'm ready to accept it, which maybe he thinks something is going to happen. But Do you still are you still drafting regardless of what the news is on that?
Yeah, because they're not going to do anything unless there's another offense.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
I'm pretty safe even with a 3-game suspension after Justin Jefferson. T.J. Hawkinson is probably out for half the year.
Yes.
So even without Addison, they're going to desperately need him when he comes back, even if
Yep.
he gets suspended this year. So I'm perfectly okay with taking him in the 8th or 9th round.
I have such with the way that the NFL is right now, I have such a hard time seeing them suspending him for an alleged D when technically he didn't even have a BAC on file. Like
Yeah,
kid was asleep, right? So like clearly there was something going on. You and I've
yeah.
had a fair few beers in our lifetime and probably fallen asleep in some weird places. So I get it, but at the same time, I don't understand the reason for the drop. Right? Like
Yeah.
I was just in a best ball draft a couple hours ago. I got CD Lamb at the 110.
Wow.
Because he hasn't shown up to camp. And Jamar
Yeah.
Chase went at the 109. Like
Yeah.
it doesn't these guys are going to play. You know what I mean? Like they're going to play. They may not be
For
there
sure.
this week. They may not be there next week. They may not freaking be there until September 5th, right? But like they're going to be there and it's going to be fine. So yeah,
I know I was talking about who I liked. Another one that I kind of like seeing is a big chef's draft. And I
Big
know we
Chief.
were kind of talking about Tua and where is he being taken too high, but I can't deny his wide receiver core. I like that. I mean, with Christian Kirk as your wide receiver 5, I'm very happy with that.
Yeah.
So I mean, and then you're still getting David Njoku at that range. He's a value because he has those 10 reception games.
Yeah.
So in full PPR, he's still a good value, and you
Yeah.
have Brees Hall as well. I'm okay with your quarterbacks being a little subpar, even though Tua can still be a top 10 play if everything goes right.
Yeah. Well,
I like that.
let me ask you this then, since we're talking about Big Chief here, starting with Brees Hall is at 110 as his RB1, pairing him with Zach Moss, his wide receiver core, Amon-Ra St. Brown, Mike Evans, Cooper Kupp, Keenan Allen, Christian Kirk. Anybody that you kind of in that range that you maybe would have taken over some of the other guys that he took, especially as a at the quarterback position. But anything maybe you would have done a little tiny bit differently there?
Yeah, I would have taken Justin Herbert over him for sure.
Yeah, I would have as well.
I think Trevor Lawrence and hot take, even Jaden Daniels, I would, and Matt Stafford. Actually, everyone behind him for that next round, I would. I would have, actually.
Yeah, I think it would be important to get another quarterback there. And I'm going to have to, as soon as I'm on the clock, I got to pause the draft for just 1 second. And I've got a screen thing going on here where I can't see my own board now. So we'll be all right. But
yeah, so it's just one of those things like, if you believe in him, take him. But I mean, he's kind of in that same argument, like how people are just hating on Brock Purdy,
right?
Because of what he is. But Brock Purdy in fantasy is pretty decent, and so is Tua. It's just in real life, are they good quarterbacks? Well, we're not talking about real life, right? We're talking about fantasy production, and they could be. He's on the fence in that regard. So.
Well, and look, and you and I were talking before the show, and we'll bring it up now, but we were talking a little bit earlier as well. Like, would you trade for Justin Fields, right? Like, Justin Fields is not a great NFL quarterback. I think everybody knows that at this point. The question that I have is he a good fantasy quarterback? And I think the answer to that is still yes, right? So, obviously that's more of a dynasty question. But look, I've said this stat a bunch of times, and I think it'll probably be fairly close to being repeated again this year. 66 different quarterbacks started an NFL game last season. So if you had Joe Flacco paired with David Njoku on any roster last year, chances are good you not only went to the playoffs, you probably won your league, assuming you had ceiling performances at your running back and wide receiver position. But that's the truth of where we are now, right? Like, I just took a pick here. I have to say it. It almost made me vomit. I almost had a dodgeball moment, threw up in my mouth a little bit. But I took Daniel Jones here because I needed a third quarterback in Superflex. But I'm not happy about it. But Daniel Jones has got job security. He does rush the ball. It's not pretty. You don't want to do it. But I have Lamar Jackson and Jaden Daniels, so I'll throw him in there as my bye week fill-in and hope that's the only time I have to put him on the field. So
you have rushing upside. That's another.
That's the key. That's the key, right? I want the rushing upside. I always am targeting that. So
and I mean, even like just kind of again, just not trying to bash on Tua or anything, but look at even Anthony Richardson. He's played what, 5 games total,
Three,
and
three,
he
three and a couple
three,
quarters.
three and
Yeah.
a half and a
Yeah.
quarter. So it's like, and he's been going top 5 in a bunch of drafts.
Yes.
Everyone's believing in him, and we don't know if he can even stay healthy, but he's got rushing upside
Yeah.
more than Tua does, and
Right,
that's where
right.
he's already rising up the ranks. But it just, yeah. So I mean, and with Tua, it's always hit and miss because he could still be throwing for 280, but only 1 touchdown.
Correct.
And then Tyreek Hill ran one in and stuff, and then the value sometimes isn't there, and then you're angry.
Yeah. Yeah, Tua to me is one of those guys where if I've got Tyreek Hill or Jalen Waddle in best ball that I'm targeting as my stack quarterback, but in redraft, I'm probably staying away, and I'm only really taking him in dynasty if it's a super flex. So I'm just not in love with Tua. I do find it interesting. I want to ask you this real quick because I've been thinking about this a lot over the last couple of days. Excuse me one second. I forgot to turn the board back on here. That's my fault. I do find it interesting that we have the now top 5 highest paid quarterbacks in the league with, I think, a combined like 3 playoff wins between all of them.
Yep.
Or something to that effect. Obviously no Super Bowls. Do you think that is, I mean, obviously the answer is it's just because of the market and the way that the market is being reset, but do you think that these teams ultimately are going to end up in kind of a Daniel Jones, a Deshaun Watson buyer's remorse situation, or do you think that they're legitimately happy with paying that kind of money to secure these quarterbacks?
I think it's more of if we don't secure him, where does he go?
Right.
In that, I mean, like let's just have, it's not the same example, but Jacksonville's just angry that Tennessee got Calvin Ridley.
100%.
So it's like, man, if I would have just given him 5 mil, 10 mil more, would have that have crossed the line over back to us?
Yeah.
So it's just more like, I know what he is, and he could beat us, and I never want that to happen or go into our division. So yeah, I'm gonna just bite the bullet because yes, 60 some quarterbacks played last year, but there's probably what, 12, 14 good ones, like very elite ones.
Yeah, I mean,
in real life. So it's like, if you think you have one, you got to take that chance.
It's hard. I love what you said. If we don't pay them, where do they go? Because as you look at next year's free agency class, it's Dak Prescott.
Yep.
That's it. So I think what you're going to see is 2 things. Number one, the top 4 or 5 teams in the draft are probably going to overdraft the quarterbacks because they desperately need them, right? Shedeur Sanders is probably going to go pretty high. Carson Beck will probably go pretty high. I'm really curious to see what Jalen Milroe does this year at Alabama with Kalen DeBoer because it's a new scheme. It's not Saban. It's still the SEC. Yep. I do think Jalen Milroe can be a Jaden Daniels type player. I think he could ultimately, we'll see what happens, but I think he could be drafted ahead of Shedeur Sanders next year if he has a really solid season, better conference, perceived value, he rushes the ball, et cetera, et cetera. But outside of those rookies, I think you're going to have an Aaron Rodgers style type, a Deshaun Watson type trade to get a new quarterback because there's just nobody in free agency. So yeah, it's going to be really interesting this year to just kind of see what happens. And obviously in the Tyler, I just saw in the comments, Tyler Lockett in the 12th. I stared down Tyler Lockett. I took Jahan Dotson because I have Jaden Daniels on my team. Otherwise, I would have taken Lockett in that spot. And Dotson might have made it back to me. But yeah, Tyler Lockett in the 12th is an extreme value for sure. So I just have a hard time with some of these teams that are paying so much money for, I'm going to call it what it is, above average play, mediocrity. Like Tua is not, what is he, $54 million a year? Like, that's for that 0 playoff wins.
It makes our dads really angry that Dan Marino only had 50 million career earnings.
Yeah, exactly. My whole family's from Miami, man. They're all my, I call my uncle every week, and I say, "What do you think of Tua?" And all I have to say is, "What do you think of Tua?" And then it's like I can put the phone down for 10 minutes because that man will just, oh man, he hates him. He sucks and blah, 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 blah. Yeah, here we go. So. Yeah. All right. So we just said Tyler Lockett in the 12th, crazy value. Let's look at the double-digit rounds. I see one that stands out a ton, but I'm about to be on the clock. So is there anyone that stands out to you other than Tyler Lockett as being maybe not an extreme value, but someone that you're like, wow, that's a great pick this late in this draft here?
I mean, I liked Rashee Shaheed down this late. I mean, I think I've been seeing him going even in the 8th or 9th round just because of, I mean, it might be just because of the kickoff rules and stuff like that, but he's also what Michael Thomas isn't back on that team, so he's wide receiver 2
I don't
on
know. Is
that
Michael
team.
Thomas even in the league right now?
I don't think he is.
I think Michael
No.
Thomas is on the unemployment line right now, if
He
my
is on
memory
the
is right.
unemployment line,
Yeah.
yes. No, and
So
I mean, I'm still a huge Nick Chubb fan, even with where he's going.
yeah,
And even if he misses 6 games,
yeah,
there's still value there. And having Barkley and Pacheco already, I'm all right with taking him there as well.
absolutely.
I'd be very happy with that.
Yep,
So
I'm with you on that. I think he's one of those. Next week on the show, we're going to be talking about league winners. Nick Chubb's not going to make the show, I'll tell you that right now. But I do think he's kind of in that like second half of the season values, right? When he does come
yep,
back and he is fully healthy. What if Nick Chubb is your de facto goal line back for the Browns? Like that's fantastic. So the two players that stand out for me are both running backs. Actually, the first one is Austin Eckler at the 12-5 here. Look, Anthony Lynn's the run game coordinator. We like Cliff Kingsbury's offense. Brian Robinson has never been impressive. It's
nope,
just it's never been a player that you're saying, hey, there's no way someone could displace this player from the starting lineup. To me, look, the downside of Austin Eckler is he looked bad.
yep,
He didn't look good last year. So I do think there is, obviously he's older, he may have lost a step, et cetera, et cetera. The age cliff, all of the metrics will tell us, but he catches passes. He's a good short yardage specialist. He can score. Anthony Lynn loves the guy. So I think he's a great value for Dirty Mike here in the 12th round, especially as your third running back here. I'm also, and maybe it's just me, I think Gus Edwards in the 10th round is a great value as well. I know they want to run the ball. They're probably not going to be able to do it as well as they want to. Their offensive line's not very good. They don't have a great wide receiver core. So as much as they want to run the ball, the Chargers, I think they're going to be throwing it a lot more than they want to because they're going to be losing games. Now, Justin Herbert just went into a cast or a walking boot today for a couple of weeks. So we'll see what that does. But look, Gus, quietly, if my memory's right, someone can fact check me in the chat here. I think quietly Gus had like 12 or 13 touchdowns last year.
yep.
So
100%.
if Gus doesn't get, if he gets 800 yards this year and does end up, if JK's healthy or Vidal or somebody else is going to take, some of that yardage away, if he can get double-digit touchdowns in the 10th round, that's a tremendous value. So give me Gus Edwards and Austin Eckler as late round kind of dart throws in the running back room. So
And
I like
just
both those
another
picks.
one that I saw right after I looked at Gus Edwards is the guy right below him, and Chase Brown. He's been getting run with the first team the whole time in Cincinnati, and I mean, they ran Joe Mixon into the ground for his 4 years that he was there, right?
They did.
So I mean, if they actually believe in Chase Brown and he's going to get that run, that's a great pickup in the 11th as well.
Yep. I like Chase Brown this season. I actually said the other day that if you look historically at what the Bengals have done, Mixon was a first and second down guy, and then they pretty much exclusively brought Pirine in on third down. So I think regardless of what happens, whether it's more of a timeshare or there is kind of a backfield split, Chase Brown's going to have value this season. And I think, again, if it's third down or if it's goal line, like he's going to have more value than Zach Moss managers really want him to. I think that's going to be a bit frustrating as the season goes on. So
for sure,
we'll see how it goes in that room.
So we're in the 15th round. How do we have 22 rounds here?
No, we're just going to go 15 tonight. Excuse me. We're just going to go 15 tonight and want to be on all night.
No, that's fine. It was just more of a in this, what would you say? Probably 22 rounds is probably around the mark that you go. Where do you see the value in the rookie wide receivers this year?
So
because I'm seeing some come off the board, and I'll tell you, there's a few players on the board that I'd take after those guys, so that went before them.
Yeah, so to me, I think when you're looking at the top three guys, right? When we're looking at Marv, when we're looking at Neighbors and Rome, I think I'm looking for tier breaks or positional value where I say, okay, is it time for me to pivot, right? So I'll tell you very honestly here, in the second round of this draft, I was obviously targeting AJ Brown as my wide receiver 1. AJ Brown got selected right before me, and that to me is the tier break at the top end wide receivers.
For sure.
So I
agree.
decided to pivot and take Johnny Taylor there because I do think JT can be the overall RB1. I do not think Garrett Wilson, Marvin Harrison, Chris Olave, the guys that got drafted after, can overtake, unless there's injury, everything we talk about presumes health, can overtake the top 5 or 6 wide receivers in the draft. So I don't have a round for you specifically, but I do think it's a good opportunity. And this is why we mock, right? It's a good exercise to look at the board and to say, okay, I'm between 2 guys here. I think one will get back, or hey, you know what? I think it might be time to pivot because this is the tier break. That's where I'd start to insert some of those wide receivers. And then the caveat is, what's their, Brian Thomas Jr., prominent role. Yep. Ricky Pearsall, buried on the depth chart, right? So like that's where you kind of have to look at what's their path to playing time and obviously what's their upside ceiling case. What about for you?
I agree totally. It was just more, I was looking at like the Xavier Leggett's and stuff like that. It's like, I'm probably taking him before Jacoby Myers. I just am. Troy Franklin, I might make that dart throw too, even before Jacoby Myers. Because I know what I'm getting out of Jacoby Myers. I can still be naive about the rookie that I haven't seen. But I've watched on his tape in college and I liked.
Yeah.
It's like Gabe Davis too, I'm not taking him.
No.
Nowhere near the 13th round.
I don't take Gabe Davis unless it's best ball. It's just one of my, ESPN always does their annual, do not draft list. Gabe Davis is always on my do not draft list unless it's best ball draft. And obviously, if I have Trevor Lawrence, then I'll take him. If I don't, then I'm probably not even taking him in best ball at all. So, yeah, it's tough. I think when you look at, certain positions, for me, again, I want to look at what is the clear path. Like Roman Wilson to me is one of the players I have a ton of exposure to in best ball. Now, obviously he just did his ankle. He's going to be 3-4 weeks, maybe longer. Any player can get injured on any play.
Exactly.
But Roman Wilson, I don't see a clear wide receiver 2 outside of George Pickens in that. Maybe Pat Freiermuth is the wide receiver 2 at the tight end position, or Jalen Warren, right? I mean, like one of the running backs, right? But from a pure wide receiver perspective, it's George Pickens and then fill in the blank. So I've been taking a ton of shots on players like that, obviously a rookie, unproven. But if the guy can't get on the field over Van Jefferson, then you're screwed anyway, right?
Exactly. Yep.
That's the kind of things that you need to be evaluating and looking at, right? So, I think as we get into the last 2 drafts here, Steven Michelson, Gavin, hey, that was a blast, boys. Awesome, man. Thanks for being here with us tonight. We're going to be running more of these. Obviously, my show is every Thursday night, but I may jump in and do a Wednesday night one. I am a part of Get Right Fantasy Network. We're doing our mock draft tournament right now. Spots are pretty much filled up for that. That goes pretty quick, but keep that in mind for next year. Go ahead and give our boys over at Get Right Fantasy Network a like and subscribe on their page. Make sure to jump over to the Fantasy Football Tavern. My guy Kendall is always there, giving us hot takes and cold beers. Definitely has some great content. He and I do a lot of collabs. And then obviously, if you're listening, you're probably already subscribed, but the Extra Point on YouTube, and then obviously on Spotify and Patreon. So Cody, as we conclude this draft, let's do a quick once over. And maybe, I know you already highlighted Big Chief, and Mad Dog, but give me one other team that you really like. And then let's just kind of dissect the build a little bit there.
I like is it Raven 14? I'm liking Raven 14's.
Oh, right. Yeah.
And
Raven.
I don't really know why, but I mean, I don't really like Jalen Hurts, but I like Dak Prescott a little bit more.
Yeah.
But even just like, it's hard finding running backs, but he's getting value, or they're getting value at so many of, like, Jalen Wright's a good value play right there.
Right.
Zeke, we don't know what's going to happen. Good value. Jalen Warren, good value. McLaughlin could be running back 2 there. Running back 1.
Could be.
And then he's got high upside guys with Shaheed, with Ridley. And we don't know what Worthy is, but it's a nice dart throw there.
Yep.
And Amari Cooper's the bona fide number 1, and Neighbors is going to be the number 1 there as well. So
100%.
And then with Jake Ferguson, with where the board was landing, that's a good play too. You have a stack. I mean, I'd rather do a Dak Prescott, Jake Ferguson stack than a Zeke one as well. But it's just, that's how it is. I mean, you got both, so it doesn't really matter.
I mentioned at the top of the show, I was really curious to see how Skull, Riven, and Kryptonauts teams would turn out going with that kind of hero QB build. So I wanted to look through those real quick. excuse me, I like Skoll's team here a lot.
Yeah.
Upside with Richardson and then security with Love. So maybe the, very, very safe with Jordan Love. We expect a QB1 season. Pocket passer not going to run a lot, but then obviously the upside ceiling in Richardson. I was curious what his team would look like because he went QB, and then Kelsey.
Yep.
But he ended up getting tremendous values to get Pittman, Devonta Smith, Christian Watson, Jordan Addison, Tyler Lockett, and then Demarcus Robinson really late. Robinson, obviously, dart throw fine there in LA. But the other 5 guys are all relevant, and they're all 1s and or 2s on their team. So it worked out really well for him. And then to get James Cook and Aaron Jones, Gus Edwards and Chase Brown, I think it's a great draft. I think it's one of the drafts that, I'd be honest, I do a lot of for our mock draft tournament at Get Right Fantasy Network. I'm not participating, I'm grading. So I've graded, probably 48. I mean, we were day 4 now, so however many that, about 12, about 48 teams. I like his group a lot. I think it's got week winning upside. I think it's got some season long longevity. Christian Watson, we don't know if he's going to be fully healthy. He's supposedly got a whole bunch of, went to the Sports Science Institute, got a whole lot of information about his muscle imbalance, and he's fixed it or whatever he's done. I don't know. My point being is he's still the red zone threat there. He's 6'2".
Yep.
I got to look.
6'2", 6'3".
6'4", excuse me, 6'4", 208. He's the jump ball guy. He's the red zone threat. Like Jaden Reed is not. Jaden Reed's going to be good, right? Romeo Dobbs going to be good. Dontavian Wicks, but they're small, quick, shifty guys. Like Watson is the threat. So I like the upside there in that pick.
And it's really hard to find parity in so many positions that he found.
Yeah.
Like even like the biggest dart throw is Justin Fields, but you have Jordan Love and Anthony Richardson already.
Right. That's exactly
right.
right.
And like you said, you brought out the wide receiver depth, but the running back, we highlighted his 2 later running backs even in the show here. So, I mean, that's great. And then Cole Kmet as your tight end too.
Yep.
When you need a fill-in for Kelsey. I mean, that's nice balance.
Well, and he's got
hard to find sometimes in Superflex.
And he's got stacks, right? He's got Richardson, Pittman, he's got Watson, Love. So I like that team a lot. That one stands out to me. Cool. Well, question in the chat here to kind of end the show. Chat from K9 here. I'm in a dynasty draft and I'm picking between Lamb and Chase. Who do I choose? It's a nice problem to have. How do you? I know my answer, but how do you? Sorry, I'll leave that question up. How do you see that? CeeDee Lamb or Jamar Chase in this draft here? And I guess in this particular case, Superflex single quarterback doesn't really matter.
I see it, and I'm going to go back to CeeDee Lamb's rookie year for this analogy.
Okay.
I've seen Jamar Chase and T. Higgins, their full careers, and they're putting up numbers. Jamar Chase is the clear wide receiver 1.
Right.
When CeeDee Lamb was the wide receiver 2 with Amari Cooper, I wasn't that impressed with it.
Sure.
So if they ever get another option for CeeDee Lamb, is his production going to fall? I know Jamar Chase isn't going to, so I'm going to take Jamar Chase over him.
Interesting. Yeah. We've got John Connor in the chat. He's chiming in here saying it's Chase, so pretty definitive there. I'm going to go Jamar Chase. I'm going to go for fairly similar reasons as you, Cody, but I think the big thing for me, obviously, this is mostly a dynasty show.
Yep.
It's the contract. We know it's coming. It hasn't come yet. Obviously, CeeDee Lamb's contract hasn't come yet, but we know both of these guys will be paid. The question is what and when, but it's the quarterback. Joe Burrow's already been paid, and T. Higgins may or may not be there. T. Higgins could be there next year if they rework a deal. He could be playing for one of probably about 15 other teams in the league. Dak Prescott may not be there next year. So if Dak Prescott's not there and you bring in a rookie or a bridge quarterback, I mean, look, let's call a spade a spade. Jerry's losing it, man. I don't know what Jerry's done. I don't even think Jerry knows what he says half the time. My point is that the safety and security of the contract for Joe Burrow and the way that they've structured the Bengals around him with Jamar Chase, his college teammate, and the contract that we all know is coming in a dynasty format, I'll take that for the next 3 to 5 years and be very comfortable with that pay. So, yeah, so K9 saying why Chase? K9, if you're listening, for me, it's the contract and it's the security with Joe Burrow. And for Cody, it's, some of the my brain just went blank here, the ups and downs, right? Some of the inconsistency potentially, what if T. Higgins goes to the Cowboys, Right. So no, maybe that lowers the ceiling a little bit there for CeeDee Lamb. So
Yep.
Cody, any last thoughts on the draft? This was awesome, man. Thanks for hanging out as always. But let's as we get ready to wrap up here, any last thoughts or anything that you want to kind of chat through for the listeners?
Well, the last thing that I was just looking at the CeeDee Lamb team for
Mm.
Dorsey B, and I liked his balance of his draft too. So I just wanted to shout that one out. I even liked seeing the Kyle Pitts, George Kittle, but getting Rodgers, and I'm actually really in on Will Levis because this year for redraft I definitely am because I don't know what he is, but he's going to be slinging the rocks. So if that's your third quarterback, I'm happy with that.
He's playing for a contract.
Exactly.
So Will Levis, for better or for worse, is going to be taking some chances. Yeah, I didn't highlight Dorsey's earlier because I wanted to look at these three teams with the double quarterback build, but I actually liked Dorsey's as well. So I'm glad you brought it up. For the folks that can't see the board, Justin Herbert, Aaron Rodgers, and Will Levis as his quarterback room with CeeDee Lamb, Puka Nacua, so obviously ceiling for both of those players. Brian Thomas Jr., Romeo Doubs, Josh Palmer, and Brandon Cooks in his wide receiver room. Saquon Barkley with Isaiah Pacheco. That's really nice with Nick Chubb and Antonio Gibson, and two tight ends, Kyle Pitts and George Kittle. So nice job, Dorsey. He's in a 14-team league with me. That league's crazy. That league's you really have to think strategically in that league because you get kind of one guy, at each spot because of the number of teams in the league. So yeah, really good team for Dorsey there as well. And honestly, there's no bad teams, and certainly we're not going to, everyone. If you're doing this with us, you're a degenerate like us. You know what you're doing. You're not flipping through, ESPN sleepers and driving those guys in the first and second rounds. So
exactly,
yeah,
if you're
really
doing a mock, you have a real draft coming up, and you're just doing them to get an edge on your competition. To know 100%. Where the values are actually.
Yep, 100%.
So you don't want to overbuy. So.
Yep, exactly. So let's wrap the show. Look, I think what we'll be doing next Thursday, for those that don't know, I've said it a couple times, but we are going to be doing league winners from a redraft perspective. So obviously that'll impact your dynasty teams, but going through some of those players that we think ultimately you should be targeting over the next month as you get into your real drafts. I'll host a couple more of these mock drafts. I've got a bunch of people that unfortunately couldn't get in tonight, so we'll definitely make sure we get a couple more of these available for those folks that weren't able to get in. And then the last thing I would say, and I'm sure Cody, you would echo this, please go mock on your own. Please go try and grab friends and mock, because chaos happens in drafts. Guys you're targeting get sniped. We saw players drop tremendously, so there's values laid on. So go mock, get yourself as prepared as you possibly can to not only dominate your draft, but have a really good strategy and plan of when and if you need to pivot in that draft, so you can leave going into that first month of the season with guys that you're going to feel really good about putting into your lineups on a weekly basis. So Cody, one more time for the folks, tell everybody where they can find you, and then we'll go ahead and sign off.
You can find me at Dynasty Pros, and Brian, you saw last week I host a podcast with him, Fourth and Dynasty, on the Dynasty Pros YouTube. So if you like what Phil's been doing here, we're pretty exclusively Dynasty with Dynasty in the show. So if you'd like to see what we're all about, you can come see us as well. So.
Awesome. Yep, definitely hop on there. Fourth and Dynasty, give those guys a like and subscribe. I've obviously had them on my show. Waiting for the invite, man. I'm ready. You let me know when you guys record and I'm there. So Cody, thanks for being with me here, man. And for everyone that's out there, have a great rest of the night. I did watch a little of the Hall of Fame game. I'm not sour. I missed the rest of it. It was getting a little salty. So enjoy preseason if you're going to be tuning in. Hard Knocks is on Tuesday coming out with the Chicago Bears. So we're excited for more Hard Knocks, and the season's right around the corner, man. So for everybody at Get Right Fantasy Network, for myself, Phil Ruskin, host, thanks for joining in another episode of The Extra Point. Catch y'all next week.